I'm sitting here with Shiv Singh, who heads up digital globally for PepsiCo Beverages. Shiv also sits on the board of governors for DMG, the board that I chair, and he's also an author. You wrote Social Media for Dummies, which...
Social Media Marketing.
Social Media Marketing for Dummies, which seems like a book that would be a very good seller these days. So many people trying to get their arms around social media. I'm interested, Shiv. It's an interesting time, I think, to have your job in a big organization like PepsiCo. I know that organizations are changing, but you particularly, I think, have been behind a lot of change at your company in the way you go to market with programs, in the way you deal with your agencies. I saw you give a presentation last year about how PepsiCo has changed the way it briefs its agencies so that you're not always falling back on traditional types of strategies. Can you talk a little bit about that and how that's worked for you and has it progressed?
Yeah, absolutely. So, it's fascinating as the whole media ecosystem has evolved. What we've seen is that it's getting harder and harder the world is getting a lot more complex, and it's getting a lot harder to think of the world as starting with TV and then sprinkling everything else around. I mean, the Super Bowl itself today is not a one-day event. It is arguably a 3-week or a 1-month event. So what we've found is it's very important to brief agencies as early as possible and as much as together as possible, because it results in better ideas for us, platform agnostic ideas that can travel across any platform and any device. I would say in some cases it works very well. In some cases it doesn't work so well, where, for example, there's a tension point around who owns and who drives the creative concepts,
Sure.
Who owns, who drives, who understands the brand the best. So I say it keeps evolving, but what we do know is that we don't live in a world that's TV-centric anymore. TV is absolutely a massive anchor, but we need to think about engagement more broadly with our consumers. Yeah.
Absolutely. And in those situations, I know PepsiCo works with a lot of different agencies. Do you ever see a David and Goliath situation where when you've, briefed the group of agencies, one of the smaller ones actually comes up with a big idea and is able to drive it?
Absolutely. So we have definitely seen that. What I would also say is that in more cases than not, it's the larger agencies who know how to execute for us very well, on certain platforms, but they may not always be the ones with an idea. So everything is about this hypercross collaboration and cross partnership, and giving the agencies who invest so much time and energy in their relationship with us the confidence that, we're with you for the long run. We're not making decisions sort of one idea at a time. Yeah. And that's when everyone's more comfortable with ideas coming from different places and allowing different ideas to blossom. So it takes a lot of internal collaboration between our different groups internally and confidence, and then a lot of collaboration between the different agencies too. But we've definitely seen those situations.
Yeah, and it takes having a keen eye for agency abilities and where their strengths are. Shiv, you were an agency person yourself for a good amount of time. You played the strategy role at Razorfish in Boston, where I live as well. What role do you play in all this? Do you mostly just work through agencies, or sometimes are you dealing with vendors yourself? I saw you just announced a relationship with Saving Star. Is that something that you're doing? Is it?
So this is where it gets really interesting, and I'd say this is another example of the media ecosystem changing, I'd say pretty dramatically, especially and specifically in digital, whereby as brands, we can't just be the buyers of ideas or the buyers of technologies or the buyers of impressions. What we've found is we need to be operating in a real-time marketing basis where we're as much or increasingly so, I'd say, the product strategists, the face to our consumers, which I'd say we have, of course, been for a long time, but also the incubators, also the VCs, also the folks who are there with our consumers, the architects of experiences, all of the above in a sense. So when I look at my role, it's really twofold. It's one, mentoring and supporting the amazing team that I lead, that they make me look good.
Yes.
And then it's second with specific brands, being more hands-on, and then with the rest of my team playing the role not just of buyer, but also of strategist, product architect, QA tester,
sure,
social media poster, whatever it takes.
PepsiCo is really known, I think, as a company that gets in early with some of these startups, and you can really be a difference maker to them. Sometimes they succeed partially because you became one of their big customers. But how do you make that selection? Like what Saving Star, I just saw Saving Star present. I think they're a really cool company. I think that they have a model for the future. They're obviously not, it's not critical mass yet, but you must have seen something that you really believe as an interaction with consumers will be, a benefit. Yeah,
so I'm incredibly excited about Saving Star and what we're doing with them, and I'm going to come to them in a moment. What we do and what helps us a lot is, so we've launched this initiative, which we're actually going to be announcing next week more formally, is the PepsiCo Beverages Digital Labs. And through that, just as the way a VC, determines its portfolio priorities and then looks at startups and works with them, depending on our business needs. So we're very business driven, even though it may not appear so when we're talking B2B. We look at our different brands, we look at who they're trying to reach, how they're trying to engage with them. And based on that, we look at what are our portfolio priorities in digital. That then drives what kind of technologies, what kind of startups, what kind of initiatives matter to us, and through the lens of for what kind of audiences. And that's when we then enter and network and really get in at the ground level in the ecosystem with the startups, ideally as much as they'd accept us as peers who have mutual respect for each other versus as folks with a big paycheck. And so we do a lot to nurture and develop those organic relationships. In the case of Saving Star, there's a lot I love about them, but what I think is especially interesting is how we've built them into our Facebook page. And what they allow for is digital couponing, which we all know is exploding, but in a retailer agnostic fashion, which drives greater loyalty to Pepsi than just to the retailer. I mean, we want loyalty to the retailer. I mean, they're our customers. They matter to us, but we also want loyalty to ourselves.
Right.
And this allows for that. So when I saw it, it was an absolute no-brainer. And it's a tie to sales, easily measurable, instead of me getting into boring and mundane conversations about like counts, which I don't think matter as much. Here we're doing something on our Facebook page for Diet Pepsi and Pepsi Max that can be directly measurable to the point of sales.
Right.
So we love it. Yeah.
So I follow you on Twitter. And you very actively, you're not just the digital global head for PepsiCo, but you're also a user. You're participating in the amplification of messages. Tell me about PepsiCo or Pepsi Sound Off. That seems to be a big program that's going on now, and I think what you're after here is participation from consumers and amplified media, earned media, etc.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So in my world, which is PepsiCo Beverages, we occasionally do things that I think are just mind blowing and exciting. And Pepsi Sound Off is one of them, and really driven. This is driven by a few members of my team and Andrea, who's the architect of it. But what it really is it's the first brand-led social TV experience, and we are big anchor sponsors for the X Factor. And what we discovered is that, people watch the X Factor, they talk about it a lot online. They talk about it in their news, both in their Facebook newsfeed, but much more so on Twitter, no surprise there. However, for every tweet that I may publish about the X Factor, because I'm passionate and excited about the show, 2/3 of my followers and my friends may not be interested in it. Mm-hmm. but they're seeing it regardless.
Sure.
So we saw an opportunity to create an experience that basically amps up Twitter for all the X Factor fans and throws in a game mechanic layer on top of it. So that's basically what Pepsi Sound offers. Think of it as Twitter on steroids with a game mechanic layer for the X Factor fans. And there's a leaderboard. Whoever does best on the leaderboard, we actually put in a commercial on TV. So it's a great dynamic and a great experience.
So a final question, Shiv. What are you excited about that you're really ready to scale and make big?
So I'd say there are a few things that matter to us without giving too many secrets away. One is no doubt we think for certainly some of our beverage brands, like Pepsi specifically, real-time marketing is very important. And I'm a big believer, a big advocate, and in both in defining and pushing that, which is we need to participate in culture as it's shaped, as curators, as participants, as creators, and we're going to play that role. So everything real-time marketing is very important. I'd say something else that matters a lot is mobile is going to get much more important.
I totally agree with you.
We did a fascinating program this summer. Our whole Summertime is Pepsi Time program, which was a massive TV campaign, but you could also check in at fun summer locations like beaches and spas on Foursquare, and when you checked in, you got special benefits, special Pepsi badges. It was a beautiful integration. We're going to see and be doing a lot more of that. The third thing that I think matters, and this is portfolio-wide, and especially with brands like Dew, who we've just launched something with Call of Duty, is much tighter and redefined, I'd say, relationships with our media partners, with the media companies, and rethought relationships with even the technology companies so that we are co-creating experiences together. And the role of the Pepsi brands, whether it's Pepsi, Dew, Sobe, CRMS, whoever it may be, is not just as a sponsor of the experience, but as bringing something to the experience that only that brand can.
Yes.
And I don't mean money necessarily. I mean something that's
Ideas.
true to the brand.
Yes.
Ideas, experiences.
I love
so
to hear
that
you
philosophy
talking
is
that
a big
way.
part of our future.
I believe it's the brand's steward's job to create relationships like that with the agencies, and I think that is the way it works best.
Absolutely.
So, well, thank you for joining me, Shiv. Those are fantastic thoughts, and we'll look forward to seeing you at the party.
Sounds great. Thank
Okay.
you for having me.